Alright, what's going on everyone? Today we're looking at the first original deck that we've posted on this channel in a long time. Holy crap. For those who've been around for a while, I used to do my own original brews and then we do gameplay videos of it. I just haven't been doing that for a while just because it wasn't really doing that well. People didn't seem that interested in it. But today we're looking at a new deck. Well, I say sort of new. It's a standard deck and it's like impossible to brew a standard deck without someone else having already had the idea. Unless you're brewing like in the first week of a new rotation or a new set being released, then it's like someone's done it. There's so few cards that someone's done it. But today we're looking at Broodmoth Bastion. Today we're looking at the deck. In the next video we're going to do a gameplay video with it, and it's pretty awesome. So the deck gets its name from Luminous Broodmoth and Bastion of Remembrance. The Broodmoth, 4 mana, 3/4 flyer, which is fine, and it says whenever a creature we control dies, we get to return it to the battlefield with a flying counter. So that's great. Everything that dies comes back, and it comes back more powerful with evasion. Not technically more powerful in terms of power and toughness, but it's more powerful because it has evasion. Bastion gives us a 1/1 token when it enters the battlefield, and then it says we drain our opponent for 1 life every single time one of our creatures dies. So the reason this deck has been performing so well for me is that these sort of like grindy value based decks are actually capable of winning in standard finally. Standard has been so broken for so long with all these stupid combo decks that you just can't play with cards like this, or you couldn't play with cards like this. These sort of like fair and fun, sort of grindy value oriented cards just weren't successful in standard. So what are we going to be doing with these? Well, first off, we have Serrated Scorpion. Not only does this reinforce that draining theme, because it'll drain for 2 when it dies, but with both Broodmoth and Bastion, a single Scorpion represents 6 points of life drain. It'll drain for 2 when it dies, Bastion will drain for 1, so that's 3, Broodmoth will then return it with a flying counter, so it can drain 3 more. So basically you can chump block 2 turns, drain 6. That's insane, especially for a 1-drop. We also have Archfiend's Vessel. While this isn't as exciting with the Bastion, we don't get a ton of life draining, it does technically have lifelink, so it does technically life drain in the sense that it deals damage and gains life. But more exciting though, if it dies when we have Broodmoth in play, it returns to the battlefield from the graveyard, and that does indeed trigger Archfiend's Vessel, giving us a 5/5 flyer. All Archfiend's Vessel says is if it's returned from the graveyard to play, we get a 5/5 flyer, and that's what happens when we have Luminous Broodmoth in play. So we have a 1-drop that can drain 6 and a 1-drop that can put a 5/5 flyer in play. Pretty cool. And then we'll also be playing Call of the Death Dweller, which lets us return 2 creatures with total power 3 or less, which is to say we can return 2 really small creatures, but in our deck that means we can return Archfiend Vessels and Serrated Scorpions. So you can start to see how insane this is. If we have 2 Vessels in the graveyard, we get 2 5/5s. If we have 2 Scorpions, we potentially have 12 points of life drain if we have our other stuff. So Call of the Death Dweller works fantastic. So it sounds pretty cool, right? But the problem is we have to wait for the Scorpions to die. We have all of this life draining, but it might take a couple turns. If the opponent's about to die, they might just not attack, and then we have to attack for 1 to get damage out of it, so that's not great. So it's a lot of life draining, but we don't have a lot of control over it if the opponent decides to just not attack. So to fix that, we have Woe Strider. It's a 3 mana 3/2 that puts a go token into play when we cast it. That in itself works really well with Bastion of Remembrance because we get multiple creatures to trigger. Remember that Bastion of Remembrance doesn't care about tokens. If a token dies, Bastion triggers. So sacrificing the 0/1 goat will trigger the Bastion. But it also allows us to sacrifice Serrated Scorpions. So we could sacrifice a Scorpion, drain, scry, return it to the battlefield with flying, then sacrifice it again, drain some more, scry some more, add Call of the Death Dweller to that, and we get this sort of combo where we can just drain our opponents out. Like if we have just a Scorpion, a Broodmoth, and then we play Woe Strider, we can sacrifice the Scorpion, drain 2, return it, sacrifice it again, drain 2. If we have Call to the Death Dweller, we can return it to the battlefield without a flying counter, maybe another one, sacrifice both of them, drain 4, return them both with flying, drain another 4, right? Like we have this sort of cyclical drain combo sort of with all of these cards, just going to the graveyard, coming back, draining, and we're doing all this scrying so we can find Call to the Death Dweller, we can find Luminous Broodmoth if we don't have it, we can find more bastions. You know, we can dig for more of these. No, it's not really a combo, but we can dig for these sort of the synergy package that we have. So it's pretty cool. We'll also be playing Village Rites, which is an extra way to sacrifice our stuff. So like if we have Broodmoth and Archfiend's Vessel, a Village Rites for 1 mana will give us a 5/5 flyer and draw 2 cards basically. So not only do we have a way to sacrifice our Scorpions and our Vessels, but you know, it lets us dig for stuff. It lets us dig for more of those. It lets us dig for more Bastions, more Call of the Death Dwellers, you know, whatever. Village Rites might secretly be one of the best cards in the deck, but people don't really think about that when they see it, but it's really good. Just being able to, you know, sacrifice one of our little creatures and also draw 2 is fantastic. We also have a couple Null Priest of Oblivion as extra reanimators. They're expensive, they cost 6 to reanimate something, so a little costly, not great, but also, you know, it can be played as a 2 mana, 2 power lifelinker with Menace, so it kind of further reinforces that little life draining theme we have. We're also playing 1 copy each of Corpse Churn and Malakir Rebirth. So Corpse Churn mills 3 and then lets us return a creature to our hand from our graveyard. So it can help us get back key combo pieces that get hit with removal spells. You know, like if Broodmoth gets killed, we can return it. If Woe Strider gets killed, we can return it, assuming we can't escape it, which, you know, putting 3 cards in our graveyard might just allow us to escape Woe Strider, so we don't even have to return it to our hand. It can also let us get back Scorpions for more draining. You know, if we can sack a Scorpion, drain 2, return it with flying, sack it, drain 2, then Corpse Churn, fill our graveyard, get a Scorpion back, replay it, drain for 4 more. You know, it works with that sort of cyclical sort of combo-y thing that we're doing. Pretty cool, but only 1 because it's a little clunky. And then Malakir Rebirth, also kind of insane. So basically with Malakir Rebirth, we target a creature with it, and then if it dies, it gets returned to the battlefield. So that lets us do crazy things with like Broodmoth and Scorpion. So for example, if we have these 3 cards again, you know, we can sacrifice Scorpion, Broodmoth returns it, then we target it with Malakir Rebirth, we sacrifice it, Broodmoth won't return it again, but the Rebirth will, and when it returns it, it won't have a flying counter, so then we can sacrifice it, and Broodmoth will return it with a counter again, and then we can sacrifice it again. So that's 8 life drain from, you know, a Malakir Rebirth. So you can see what we're doing, right? We have all these, like, it's not a combo deck exactly, but we just have all this draining, and it's really cool. We're also going to be playing a couple removal spells in the form of Bloodchief's Thirst and Heartless Act. Not much to see here, we're just playing black, so naturally we'll be playing removal. And we have some more expensive removal in the form of Hagra, Mauling, and Elspeth Conquers Death. Mauling is another card that's being played in the place of a land, just like Malakir Rebirth. It's basically like a free removal spell or a tapped land. And ECD will let us kill big stuff, and eventually it gives us another opportunity to reanimate something. It can get us a Broodmoth back, it can get us a Woe Strider back, or it can just bring a Scorpion back so we can, you know, who knows, drain for 4, 8, 12, who knows how much. You wouldn't think that returning a Serrated Scorpion with Elspeth Conquers Death would be that exciting, but in this deck it can actually be pretty explosive, so pretty cool. And that's actually the deck. That's it for mana, and keep in mind I'm building this from my Magic Arena collection, so this isn't perfect, but I'll personally be playing 2 Temples, 4 Pathways, and 4 Fabled Passages, because for some reason I just don't have 4 Temples, I don't know why. So playing 2 of those, you can play 4 or whatever. There are a lot of tap lands, so it's a little sketchy. It might actually be worth going down like a couple Fabled Passages just because we might have too many tap lands, but we'll see how that plays out in our games. I'm also going to be playing 1 copy each of the black and white castles. Castle Ardenvale is particularly good since it gives us a constant stream of creatures that can trigger Bastion of Remembrance, so that works pretty well. And then we're just playing basics, 6 swamps, 4 plains to fill out the rest of the mana base. And sadly, I don't have a sideboard for this deck because I plan on playing it in best of 1 for my games and my gameplay video, but you can fill it with the usual suspects: Graveyard Hate, more removal, enchantment and artifact hate, maybe a board sweeper or 2 just in case we get matched up against a, you know, like a crazy Scoot Swarm deck or something, you know, that sort of stuff. Just fill it with stuff that hates out other decks. That's the most simplistic way to build a sideboard, and that's fine. Anyway, that's our deck. Like I said, I know there are tons tons of Broodmoth decks out there, but this one's been really crazy just because, I don't know, we're not technically a combo deck. I keep saying that, we're not technically a combo deck, but we just have so many ways to do these like repeatable effects over and over and over again that it just sort of combo kills people sometimes in a sense. And what's cool about it is even if we don't get all of our pieces, throughout this deck tech, I've been showing you all these crazy sort of pseudo combo-y things we could do, but even if we don't have that, we just have all this life drain that we constantly drain our opponent's life total and we constantly bolster ours. So our opponents frequently just have a hard time killing us. Even if they're beating us down and they have bigger creatures and stuff, we can usually bolster our life total enough to not die long enough to get like, you know, just a flying Broodmoth that can deal 3 damage a turn while we're draining for a couple every turn. And that kind of just works. Or we just sit back with a bunch of blockers and every time our opponent attacks, we chump block and just drain a bunch of life, and their life total drains as they try to attack us, and we're just constantly gaining back the life that we're losing when, you know, there's a couple attackers left unchecked. So it's kind of cool. So yeah guys, my next video on this channel will be a gameplay video with this deck. Subscribe to be notified, and if you're watching this more than a couple days after I posted it, then chances are the gameplay video is already up and you will see a link to it on the end screen that you're about to see, so check that out. But for now, thanks for watching everyone, and I will see you in the next one.